Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Sports Timeout. I'm Anthony Polidano, and it's been a little while since school has let out, but we've got to wrap up a little bow on the end of the 2010 spring sports season, and for that, we bring our favorite friend here for a little extra abuse, Kevin Lozon. We're going to talk about the spring sports Player of the Year winners. You know, it's always tough for us, but welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you let me talk early into the show this time. Usually your intro is a lot longer, but hey, we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time, so take it away.
All right, so we start out with girls soccer, and kind of an interesting year. You know, Ford got off to a great start and then kind of fell off. Utica had their first winning season under Dave Moran. We can start with your top four in girls soccer. Start at 4 and work your way up to 1. What were your top 4?
In fourth, my fourth best girl, well, I thought was Maddie Chappelle from 4-2. I thought she was the stabilizing factor on that team this year. I thought that she was the one that kept things under control. She was steady all year long. She could play forward. She could play midfield. I'm sure they probably put her back in defense for some time. She was just steady Eddie back there. Third, I had Cheney from Utica. I really thought she was a playmaker. She was solid in the midfield. She finished the year with 6 goals, which isn't bad, especially for a midfielder.
And led the team in assists,
and
too.
led the team in assist. Taylor Neuwhite from Ford, she was my second pick. What more can you say about her heart and desire? In the open field, she's tough to stop. She finishes great. Probably didn't finish as much as what she has in the past. She only had 13 goals this year, only.
Yeah.
For most girls, that's a great season. Right. Had 8 assists. And first place, I had Becky Barrels from Utica. Great season. 22 goals, 9 assists. Probably could have had more. I know early on in the season, she seemed to struggle. But then about maybe 2/3 of the way through to the end of the season, she was scoring goals in bunches. Fast, tall, strong, handles the ball well. I think she's going to be a very good soccer player at the collegiate level.
We should backtrack a little bit and explain how the voting is conducted before I give my. So people don't think it's just all your thoughts or my thoughts.
He makes the rules, I follow.
This is correct. We have 7 voters, basically. Yourself, who can vote for anyone in the 5 schools that SHTV covers, not necessarily the ones that the source covers.
You should identify what schools those are.
Mott, Ford, Stevenson, Utica, Sterling Heights.
Very good.
So there's our coverage area. Then I also get top 4 votes as well. You don't have to put one from each school. There doesn't have to be it's not an all-star game. You don't have a representative from everyone. And all 5 coaches have to vote. They can't vote for their own players. So they're voting for other people's players, but they have to participate for their own players to be eligible. So you get 10 points for first place vote, 6 for a second, 3 for a third, 1 for a fourth. Most points wins.
Yep. Now that you've confused everyone on how the voting works, why don't you give us your top 4?
All right. Well, my top 4, number 4 for me, even though they had a down season, Alex Clues was my number 4. 9 goals, 9 assists this past year. She moved over from the forward spot back into the midfield, which is a much different beast. Last year, Lauren DeStilio was distributing to her, and she was getting a lot of goals and finishing. This year, she had to go back in the midfield and be more the distributor. She still is very capable of scoring goals. She's got a strong leg, good footwork. Sterling Heights' main problem, really, when you look at their team, they have like 5 or 6 really quality players, but they have no depth.
No, they only had 13 or 14 players on their team.
Yeah, there's like 2 players off the bench, and after that, they're asking you and I to come in, which
so
is
the last
never
10 minutes
sign.
of the game, they're tired.
Yeah, so they get pretty worn out. Even though they are in good condition, it's too much to ask girls, to stay healthy that long, or any players.
They asked you to play this year?
No.
Oh.
But they almost had to, probably a couple games. So
lucky for them.
All right, number 3 for me, Rachel Cheney, who, as you mentioned, she's just an outstanding player. She's been All-State honorable mention third team all 3 of her years at Utica, and yet she has not won Player of the Year yet. So All-State doesn't necessarily mean the end-all, be-all, but she this year really impressed me. She has an ability to really change gears. She goes from a stop to full speed like that, and when she turns it on, she looks like she's playing at a different speed than everyone else on the field, and she combined with Becky Burles beautifully. Those two worked off of each other, in tandem outstandingly. She was healthy this whole year, which at times has been a little bit of an issue for her, and she was just outstanding for them. Then you have number 2, Taylor Niewhite. I thought going into the season, I thought Taylor Niewhite was my number 1. You kind of get an idea going in who you think is going to win, who isn't. Halfway through the season, she was my number 1. She had 12 goals at the midway point of the season, and Ford hadn't lost at the midway point of the season. Second half, Ford only won 1 game the whole second half, and Niewhite only had, I think, 1 goal and 2 assists. So she, with her teammates, had a hard time combining and winning that final, 30 feet of the field and scoring goals. They dominated the middle, but just could not produce goals.
But what you have to also remember, though, is that second half of the season is MAC Red soccer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the top players in the MAC Red are singled out. And it's tough. If you don't have that supporting cast around you, a team can take you out of the game in a heartbeat. And I definitely think that was part of Taylor's problem this year, is that she was marked. I mean, look at Chippewa Valley with Dee Davidson. Devuka, I'm sorry. She has supporting cast around her, which still enabled her to break free and score those goals.
35.
35 of them, It's just ridiculous number.
Yeah.
But Taylor didn't have that second girl to score the goals. And I think that really hurt her second half, especially in league play.
I'll give you that. She's a lot like Cheney, but she's a little more physical, a little more stronger. Like Cheney, just excellent ball skills and able to handle the ball and really play keep away. Sometimes she's making other players look silly out there trying to keep up with her. But she's also got aspirations, I know, to go to not just a college, but a big-time college. She's a very highly thought-of player. And number 1, for me, I agreed with you with Becky Burles. She really came on. Like I said, I kind of had Niewhite in my head as she's definitely number 1. And the season that Becky had, you really just can't deny with the 22 goals, 9 assists, just a very powerful leg. I think in her non-high school season when she plays club, I think she's a defender. So she's got just that rocket leg, and once she locked into being able to find the back of the net, there was really no stopping her. And her and Cheney, combined, as I said, very well. That was a very potent tandem for Coach Moran, and it led them to their first winning season under Dave Moran, and led them to the district final, which was a big. They've been a kind of a one-and-done playoff team for quite a while. So, that was big for them.
Now, drum roll, please.
A drum roll, please. Number 1, the winner, Becky Burles, is the Player of the Year with 4 first-place votes, 41 points overall. Taylor Niewhite finishes a close second, followed by Rachel Cheney. Then Alex Clues is 4th with 13 points. Leanne Bohm, the sweeper for Ford, who's also a very well-regarded player, was 5th. Then Lesperance from Stevenson, Smith from Sterling Heights, then big tie for 8th, Chappelle Orminski, the goalie from Stevenson, Haley Hilliard, who's a talented forward, and Jennifer Frage, the Stallion goalie. So there is girls soccer.
Are you sure you didn't say something to the coaches about your top 4 before they gave their?
No.
Oh, okay.
Never,
it just looks like yours.
It's
don't
just,
understand
I'm
why.
in tune with, as of right now, we'll see later in the show, maybe not so much. But
All right. As we move on.
Okay, now we move on to baseball. And baseball, we really had, it was kind of a 2-team season of the 5 teams in our coverage area. Stevenson, who has a well-established program where you just kind of expect them to be good year after year after year. They had their bumps in the road this year, but they still 20 wins and district title. It's kind of like almost an afterthought,
It's like you start at 20 wins with Stevenson and then see where they end up.
All right. Then Warmont was the other good team.
Right.
Here's my top 4. I'll start out with them. Number 4, I went down to Mott for the sophomore, Lucas Ross, who in a year where pitching was not dominant really in the county, Lucas Ross was an outstanding pitcher for them. I saw him pitch a few times, and the players on the other team were going back to the dugout saying, oh, that guy's got a good hook. You know, excellent curveball, excellent off speed, throws hard, good kid. 6-4, 1.74 ERA. He struck out 74 guys in only 60 innings. So he was also a capable hitter, about 333 average. So Lucas Ross was my number 4. Number 3, I went with Mike Catula Stevenson. I'm leaving Ben Filliman off my top 4, and he played in the All-Star game out of Mott. Filliman and Catula are essentially the same player, different positions. Filliman outfielder, Catula the first baseman. They're both the power hitting guys, but Catula was the better power hitter. 9 homers, 43 ribbies, just a force. You know, he knocked a tree out and
almost like the power out. I think on that one, I saw that blast.
About a mile over the Stevenson fence there. So he was my number 3. Alex Kanaya, a guy that I thought, as his coach Sean Maloney did, got slighted in a lot of the postseason awards, was my number 2, the catcher for Warren Mott. Just very comparable, if you haven't seen him play, to Josh Andrejczyk, a kid that runs for himself. They never pulled him out for a pinch runner. 14 steals. He threw out 19 of 38 runners attempting to steal. He hit .466 and drove in 35 runs, only a junior. Just a real joy to watch play, and a very talented kid. Him and Ross are about all Mott has coming back next year, so they're going to have to be spot on in their games. But I went Alex Kanaya, number 2, and number 1 I thought was kind of a slam dunk, Jason Fracassa. Not only was he amazing at the plate, hit .490, he had 22 steals, scored 40 runs, 26 RBI, but Stevenson was having a real problem finding pitchers. And it wasn't until the very end of the season they decided to put Jason into the starting role, and he took off. He won all 3 district games, which is the first time we've ever seen that happen.
It's almost unheard of.
And he's a slam dunk. So, all right, your top 4.
Numbers don't lie, especially in baseball. Numbers don't lie. I went Kanaya in 4th place. 1 home run, 35 RBIs, 29 runs scored, 14 stolen bases, as you alluded to. 50% on caught stealing. I mean, that's outstanding. 1.3 ERA, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Kid's definitely a player. I went Filliman, number 3. Haven't seen a lot of him. Saw him down at the All-Star game. The kid's a player. Kid hits the ball hard. I like the team player in him. Even at the All-Star game where you don't know a lot of these kids that are there. Always, hey, how you doing? Good job, you know. And I can just see the leadership that he brought to that team.
Quarterback from the football team,
and a quarterback
so
of the football
you're not
team.
Surprised, you know,
And,
not undifferent from Fracassa.
And you can just see the leadership that he would bring to a team that had success like Warren Mott. I went Catula, number 2. I think you said everything that could be said about Catula. Kid hits monster home runs. He's a player. I mean, every time he comes up, you're ducking.
It looks like
if
he's
you're
a little older than high
photographer,
school with the building.
if you're a photographer and you're standing next to Coach Emmanuel at Stevenson High School, you're ducking because he's coming after your head. And Jason Fracassa, number 1, one of the best players I've seen come out of this area in years. Reminds me a lot of Andrew Stafford, who was a shortstop at Stevenson. A lot more fire than what Stafford had. The kid hits, the kid pitches, the kid's a leader. His uniform's dirty before the game even starts. He's just, as Coach Emmanuel always says, he's the ultimate leader. He's a bulldog, and
best athlete.
Best athlete. He's close. I'll tell you what. Best athlete at 5'8" that I've ever covered.
Well, that's very politically answered.
He at 5'8", he does stuff that kids 6'4" do. I mean, I'd love to see if he was 6'2", what he'd be able to.
He would love to see that too.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And I'll tell you what, Northwood's getting a heck of a player come up there, not only for baseball but for football also. Kid's outstanding. He's got a drive to win and a will to win that I haven't seen from a lot of kids.
He's certainly on the short list for best athletes ever.
No doubt.
I think he's only the second kid that ever played in multiple All-Star games. I think Joe DiGiorgio was in the baseball All-Star game and the football. Or no.
No, he did not play in the baseball.
So yeah, he is the only. He's the only one. So he's on the short list with Brad Leach for me still, because it was in 3 sports, comes to mind, and maybe Mitch May because he was 2 sports but 2 different positions he was all counting in football. But Jason is certainly he's the best competitor we've ever covered by far, and he is the slam dunk winner. He gets 5 first place votes, 50 points. Philemon second, Catula third, Kanaya fourth, John Capobianco, who had a great start in the postseason. There are 10 innings of 2-hit ball, gets 5th. Scott Taylor 6th, Lucas Ross 7th, Adam Doan of Ford, the pitcher, is 8th, followed by Van Fletteren, the Utica third baseman. Peters, Papayas, and Vysotsky all in a tie for 10th, so they all get votes as well. But we'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the softball player of the year and a little bit more. Stay tuned.
Sterling Heights has 3 drop-off recycling centers. One at the Department of Public Works on 18 Mile, a second on 15 Mile near Baumgardner Park, and a third on Clinton River Road across from Gainsley Drive. Just recycle it.
And welcome back, everyone, to Sports Timeout. We're here breaking down the Spring Sports Player of the Year award winners with Kevin Lozon of The Source. And we're going to go into softball now, the last of the big 3 sports, so to speak, in the spring. And I'll go first on this one. My number 4, Stevenson, first baseman, Jessica Berner. She was just a force. She, very good hitter for them, and really picked it up in the playoffs. She finished the year 32 RBI, hit .388, and was really their best playoff hitter. And it was, I would say it wasn't that close. She was their clutch player last maybe 2-3 weeks of the season, and into the playoffs, she really smacked the cover off the ball and was a force in the middle of that lineup. And still an underclassman, so she's going to be back for years to come for Coach Mizraka. Stevenson really had an outstanding team this year for the second year in a row. They were kind of reloading as opposed to rebuilding after graduating like 7 great players the year before.
And they went to the quarterfinals for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
In a rebuilding.
Yeah, you would have thought that the team last year would have been the one making it that far. So that was certainly a little bit of a surprise. The number 3 player for me, Alyssa Huntley, just the
freshman.
Yeah, a freshman. And I'll say it right now, she's got a chance. We were talking about Jason being one of the best athletes we've ever covered. She definitely has a chance to be the best softball player we've ever covered. I think Allison Cruz is on the mantle as number 1 for me right now, kind of with McAnally and Lauren Heisted. But as a freshman, she's got the potential to get there. She throws so hard. She's the hardest thrower that Stevenson has ever had, according to Coach Mizuraka, and he's obviously been around Stevenson softball quite a while. And she's ahead of the pace Jessie Plague was at when she was a freshman, and she was a great pitcher for 4 years for Stevenson. But she was also the number 3 hitter in the Stevenson lineup. When I was there, she didn't do a lot offensively, but if she's hitting number 3 in that lineup, Coach Mizuraka has a lot of faith in her, and it wasn't just we're trying her out there. She was there most of the year. So
she hits the contact. I mean, she doesn't strike out a lot, and in that number 3 hole, you got to have somebody that with 2 strikes on you, you're going to be able to put the ball in play, because those first 2 hitters are supposed to get in scoring position, and you need that 3rd hitter to produce. And she might have been their best contact hitter this year.
27 RBI and a 349 batting average, and that wasn't even her best asset, so to speak. 18-7 with a 1.39 ERA in the circle for Stevenson. Struck out 180 in 166 innings, only allowed 109 hits. The only thing for me is she would be cruising for about 4 innings or so, and then she would have a rough inning, particularly in the MAC Red. Stevenson plays a great schedule. Mizuraka always schedules a very good schedule, loads up. So, the competition was fierce, but she would have an inning where control would leave her a little bit, or the teams would get these kind of bleeder hits off of her.
Well, don't forget, she's just
I know.
freshman.
Like I said, she can be the best player I've ever covered.
She did more as a freshman than most seniors do on the mound.
Absolutely. I voted her 3rd, so I
mean, that's why you expect, and I think Coach Mizuraka handled it the right way this year. He didn't, as soon as problems started happening, he stayed with her. Let her fight her way through it. She's going to be a better pitcher for that, and as she showed at the end of the year, carrying them into the quarterfinals.
Number 2 for me, Shelby Spano. Shelby, excellent improvement. Last year, she struggled a bit. I think the average was below 300, but she certainly is the most improved player in the county and really the best hitter in the county. 4 home runs, a ridiculous 46 RBI. Stevenson does play a lot of games because, as I said, Mizuraka schedules them very much. So, a lot of these totals go up because of the schedule they play, but 442 average. She had 50 hits in a season. That's a tremendous amount with 13 doubles. What I was most impressed with Shelby in the postseason, her defense in right field was just outstanding. She's got great range out there, and you think to yourself, shouldn't she be playing center field? Because by nature, your best outfielder is your center fielder. But when you factor in Huntley as the pitcher and how hard she throws, people, for the most part, the right-handed hitters are not getting around on her. And you see all the action as you watch the games. It's going to right field to Spano out there. So I think she was strategically placed there quite well. But again, only an underclassman, so she's back again next year. So I had her number 2.
And you went with a senior.
I went with Katie Studnicki, number 1. And here's my case for Katie Studnicki. I know she's a little bit not off the radar, but maybe not the popular pick. 19-9, the ERA a microscopic 0.61. She allowed only 91 hits in 194 innings, struck out 236 and walked 27. I don't think I saw Katie Studnicki walk a batter in the last 2 years. Personally, I know she has walks because they're on the stat line, but I don't think I didn't witness her walk anybody. Just impeccable control, and a great leader. The MAC White this year was much better than it was last year, and really the rest of the MAC closed the gap a little on the MAC Red this year, as you saw Dakota get punched out in the playoffs by a MAC Blue team, I believe. But excellent leader. She was a leader of that team. At times, the defense behind her fell apart completely. I was at a game that had 6 errors behind her, and you wouldn't know if she was throwing a perfect game or if the team just had the 3rd error in the same inning behind her, because she had the same upbeat attitude. The other thing is, she wasn't obviously the hitter that Huntley was, but she did have some clutch hits for them on a team that she had to have an 0.61 ERA because they only had 1 hitter in the whole lineup that hit above 300. Contrast that the Stevenson had 7 people hit 300. There was no one other than DeWitt could really hit for Utica. So, with all that, it was close. It's a little apples and oranges because Spano was clearly the best hitter. Studnicki, I thought, was clearly the best pitcher. But I went with Studnicki, being the senior, being the leader. And, you know, they had a great season. They faced Troy in that first playoff game, and she allowed like a couple of scratch infield singles, and there was 200 runs scored, and that was it. But they had to play them off the bat because that was their placing in the district, where Stevenson didn't have to face them till the quarters. So Studnicki was my number 1. And now you.
Okay, I accept your case. I took Rayos from Warren Mott, number 4. Again, 434 average, 28 RBIs, 4 triples, 13 doubles. She can run. 46 hits, 29 runs scored.
She was 3 for 3 off Studnicki in the game I saw. Her bat is a Mac Red bat. Fielding, a little inconsistent, but offensively, she's there.
But, I mean, you can't fault the stats there. I had her number 4. I took Kayla DeWitt, number 3 from Utica. From her junior year to her senior year, I thought she was a completely different ball player. She became a hitter that pitchers feared when she came up.
Absolutely.
I thought that her catching mechanics improved tremendously. She called a great game. I think Coach Adamo let her call more games this year than what she has done in the past. Of course, when you have somebody like Studnicki on the mound, it isn't too difficult to call.
Right.
But I just thought that she really had a solid season, and I took Studnicki second.
Okay.
That was a tough call. I mean, I guess you laid it out for us. I mean, she is one of the best pitchers that we've had here in the last 5 years. She's a leader. When you see her on the bench, she's behind her teammates 100%. Even if her teammate's in an 0 for 10 slump, she's like, hey, don't worry about it. Come back and get it. I love hearing stuff like that from a leader. Most of those walks that she had came early in the season. She got off to a really slow start in those crossover games and the non-conference games. Once Mac White play started, she was lights out. And I bet you if you look at her K to walk ratio, it was minuscule in the Mac White. Number 1, I couldn't get away from choosing Shelby Spano as number 1. She was phenomenal. She is a very feared hitter. Every time she comes up, she can go yard. She runs the bases well. She plays right field, outstanding. What more can you say about her game? To me, I thought that she was a big reason why Stevenson made it to the quarterfinals. I thought that
she was great in the regionals. I know she had a great. She was a little slow in the district, but she played very well in the regionals.
And I said when I looked at the stats and I saw 442 average, 46 RBIs, 50 hits, she had to be number 1. Obviously, you disagreed, but
that's why we have the voting system
that we have. Let's do the totals.
All right.
Who's number 1?
All right. Well, Spano does win the Player of the Year award.
But it was close.
It was close. It was quite close. 45 points, 3 first place votes. Studnicki second, 35 points. Then Huntley is third, followed by Rayos, who is only underclassman, so she'll be back next year as well. DeWitt finishes fifth, 403 average. As we said, no lineup protection for her. Then Morgan Gregorich, the Stevenson second baseman, who's got a very sweet swing for a right-handed hitter. Then Burner behind her. Then Dodson and Knight, the 2 Ford pitchers. Knight, a very good hitter for Ford, hit .390 on a very young Ford team.
One thing you failed to mention with Burner that I'd like to bring up, she has very soft hands at first base. And I mean, she's a big, strong girl, and she really has good footwork on defense and very soft hands. And, I mean, her defense sometimes gets lost because of her great offensive skills, but she's an all-around player.
Can you use her soft hands to wave bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us.
All right.
That does it for this edition of Sports Timeout. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time.